Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
Once I had died clinically, I heard a voice which came out of nowhere. It was very calming and simply said, "Don't worry, you're going home."
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we focus on human connection and what brings us together. I'm Moshe Popack, and today, the afterlife and what happens when we die. Sayre and Kelsey Bohlen are the director and narrator of the new documentary, Ghosts and the Afterlife, a film that bills itself as the first truly scientific investigation into ghosts and life after death. The movie won Best Documentary Film of 2022 at the Tarzana International Film Festival. It took 12 years to make and is based on thousands of hours of in-depth research and investigation with experts in multiple fields. Steve and Kelsey will tell us why, based on the research, there is no doubt that life continues after we die. Before that discussion, a quick reminder that if you like the show, please subscribe and follow me on social media at @mpopack. Now, here's my conversation with Sayre and Kelsey Bohlen. Enjoy. Hi, Steve. Hi, Kelsey.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you.
Really good to have you guys. So, Steve, I know because this is super fascinating for me. You were in the military and you had 2 afterlife experiences. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the afterlife, the after-death experiences evolved from the injuries in the military. When I was in the hospital during the attempts to resuscitate me, there was 3 arteries that had been dissected in the accident, and they had to somehow sew it all back together. But preceding the actual death experience, there was the initial injury that took place, and then the hospital, and then subsequent to the after my heart had stopped, my breathing had stopped. I was clinically dead for between 10 and 15 minutes. It wasn't a short period of time. I heard a voice which came out of nowhere. It was very calming and simply said, "Don't worry, you're going home." And the sense that I had, not from the fact that I was told that I shouldn't worry and that I was going home, but simply a sense after that everything was fine, everything was extremely peaceful, and everything was going to be fine. So after the first flatline, after I flatlined the first time, they had burned the skin off my chest in their frenzy to bring me back because I'd been out for so long, or you could say clinically dead for such an extended period of time. And then subsequent to that, very shortly, once they brought me back, very shortly thereafter, I died again. And then they went through the same process trying to bring me back. They brought me back, and by that stage, they were wheeling me into open heart surgery, where they saw your sternum in half and separate your ribs, etc., to get into the heart to perform the surgery. So it was an extended process, but both times that I had been declared clinically dead, the sensations were very similar. The second time, the same voice, same words, same sensation that everything was fine. But the second time, I started to see a light. And then after that, I went into something of a stage of, I suppose, induced anesthesia. But I actually woke up during the operation and was actually able to see about 45 minutes of the operation, not from above, but from my own eyes physically, because it reflected in the overhead lights and the overhead mirror that the surgeon was using to make his surgery easy to see, obviously. So that was an experience. It was very unnerving. In my mind, I kept trying to tell them, "Did you get this over with?" It wasn't obviously a very comfortable sensation, having to see myself being operated on.
Wow. I know everybody I speak to, and I spoke to a number of people, they mention that two words that stick out in my mind: the sense of overwhelming peace, and they mention light. There's like a light being. I had a guest a few days ago. At 9 years old, he was playing with his friends, and his friend kind of pushed him from behind, and he got hit on the side of his head. And also, he was declared clinically dead. But he told me, and I've heard different variations where you can kind of see your body. They kind of rose up, and you see. So he was in the ambulance, and he sees his father praying over his body, and an old man approached him, and he told him that everything's going to be okay, but now's not your time to go. And then, boom, he came back into his body. But so many times when I hear the story, it's that sense. And I know, I guess from that experience, and you've been working 12 years on this, you decided to make a film about it. What was that journey like to try to bring this out to the masses by making a documentary?
Well, it was extremely challenging simply due to the fact the whole approach was to show the scientific evidence of life after death. And obviously that's an extremely complex thing to do. So the first thing we started doing was approaching the various different medical doctors and PhDs that have done extensive research into the area, contacting them, interviewing them, taking that information and doing further research and locating people that they had gotten in touch with that were relevant to the research. Also, it was initially my brother Garrett's idea, who served as the executive producer on the project, to do the film. And his travels took him to 6 different states and flew over to England to the Arthur Findlay Institute. And he went through several courses there. He learned from those instructors, and he had interviewed, I don't know how many dozens of psychics to find one that was truly, truly legit.
And I know, and Kelsey, I know you brought her in. I know she's the narrator of the film. Kelsey, what was it that really kind of drew you to this project? Was there something specific in your personal journey that kind of spoke to you?
Always been fascinated with near-death experiences. I can't say that I've ever had one, thankfully. But when I saw this casting call listed, I just thought, I've got to get this part. And if you've ever been in Hollywood, you know that the odds are pretty slim. So I didn't get my hopes up too high, but I felt like the audition went really well. And I'm fascinated with after-death experiences as well. And I have seen a ghost or two in my time here on Earth. And so the subject matter was just right up my alley.
Wow. Not typical. I have seen ghosts as well, and my wife as well. But what was that experience like for you?
I was just laying in bed, and this really angel-like woman was at the foot of my bed. It was very bizarre. And I didn't feel any sense of uneasiness. I wasn't scared. So that kind of fascinated me because by all accounts, you should be terrified.
Right.
So I found that very interesting.
Yeah. How is, now that the film is out and reflecting back on it, has it changed your perspective about the afterlife?
It has. It really, really has. I didn't actually even see the finished product until a few months ago, and I was blown away. You will not be disappointed if you're at all interested in this topic.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Common Denominator podcast. My guests this week are Sayre and Kelsey Bohlen, the director and narrator of the new documentary, Ghosts and the Afterlife. They're telling us why there is no doubt that life continues after we die. Next week, an 18-year-old phenom who has climbed some of the highest rock formations in the world. I'll chat with Angie Scarth Johnson, who'll tell us what it's like to scale incredible heights at such a young age. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, back to the show. Steve, I want to ask you this. I mean, because I understand it, but just for the audience, why was it so important for you to try to bring it out scientifically?
Watching these programs on television, you realize, I would imagine most people do, that most of it is performance art. It's now they're wandering around with little thermometers, devices, ghost detectors. In reality, I don't see that as being exceptionally productive. Those devices may be detecting whatever they're designed to detect, but being able to detect a disembodied soul seems a little bit over the top from a simple temperature gauge or a simple gauge of electronic emissions in the area and these various different devices that they use. So what we wanted to do was to show as scientifically as humanly possible that consciousness can exist above and beyond the physical body, because that's literally what a ghost is. It's disembodied consciousness. And the afterlife, of course, at least from our physical dimension, from our perspective, is the ghost is simply something that is separate from the physical body. So what we had to do was simply approach it from a completely different perspective than we'd seen in any other film before or any other television program, and take it from a purely scientific perspective. We do cover history. We do cover the historical perspective, and we do cover various different fascinating religious beliefs that coordinate and support the scientific findings. But it's all taken from a scientific perspective.
Kelsey, let me ask you, was there a specific moment when you think about the film that really has impacted you?
For me, it was the firsthand accounts. That really got to me. Seeing so many people from so many different religions report similar experiences is fascinating because, they teach you in certain religions, for example, that, if you don't believe in this or believe in that, then you're not going to go to heaven. Well, obviously this tends to discredit that because these were people from all over the world, all different cultures and all different religions. So I found that fascinating, and that really opened my mind and got me to really, really think about where we go after this life.
So that's very interesting. What are the different, when you talk about religion, any specific, in other words, it could have been Buddhists or a range of all different religions that you were interacting with. How was that for them? In other words, they have this conclusion based in religion, and then they have this experience. How did they deal with, seeing things a little differently firsthand?
I think most of the firsthand accounts that we interviewed just really talked about their near-death experience very matter-of-factly. And I don't think they really connected it to religious beliefs. I can't speak for anyone individually, but that was kind of what I gathered, that they just said, this is what happened to me. And that was just the end of it. It wasn't really a conflict in their mind, it didn't seem.
And Steve, what's something that really sticks out for you in your journey making the film?
Really, really is most impactful to me are two things. First of all, it made me reflect more seriously on the subject matter, and then it made me think back on the experiences that I had and how they related to all the data that I was collecting, and was it all supporting or not supporting my previous encounters with the subject matter. But the one I had about 6 years ago now, I had a 55 mile an hour head-on collision on the highway. And the head-on collision within 3/4 of a second before the actual impact. And I was sure at that point, during that 3/4 of a second, that I was going to die. Yeah, I was in a small sports car. I couldn't see any way that I could survive. There was no way to veer off in one direction because of the amount of time that was available and the speed of the oncoming car. But what I found even more fascinating was the old "my whole life flashed before my eyes" statement that people make. I always thought that was just a turn of phrase, but literally within that fraction of a second, all the most salient things of my entire life and everyone that I've known literally flashed before my eyes. And what I was thinking in regard to why that happens, when we were in the process of interviewing the various experts and locating the various different scientific data that supported it, is that it's possible that the data is being uploaded as a form of a cosmic assessment of where that person's going next, or it's uploading the data of your memories and your soul to live on in the next dimension, or possibly both. But that the reflection on the different possibilities and why things happen and they tend to reoccur. So it's just really a combination of that, and then finding out that there was actual scientific proof. That a study done by NASA, there was a study done to prove that it's possible that invisibility can actually occur in our physical dimension. The scientific studies done during the top secret Stargate program, which was a government program that was attempted to prove that consciousness could literally extend thousands of miles without a physical body or without any electronic devices allowing it to occur. So that there, and a number of other scientific demonstrations that are presented throughout the film.
Wow. How come, we talk about whether invisibility or consciousness, I think of it like a collective consciousness or like how come there's not much more awareness? Meaning it's, I would think that kind of idea to be able to separate the consciousness from the physical body, that's super fascinating to me. I mean, is it the government shuts those, those kind of programs of research down, or is it?
Yeah, they had actually tremendous success with the program, and they were making more and more success on the subject. And they let's say they at least shut down the program of the individuals that were involved with the Stargate program. Whether they continue a program that was also a top secret program that the other researchers involved were unaware of, that's a whole nother question. But yes, they shut down the program after a number of really significant successes, one of which we portray in more detail in the documentary and how it actually took place.
Well, I know a friend of mine, he lives out in California, and he said at Stanford, he was able to put on kind of, you talk about invisibility, he had like kind of goggles or glasses, and he was actually able to see through materials. Like he was able to see on the other side of a wall through this, and I was like, oh, wow, so I guess different pockets of people really kind of push the limits on certain ideas. But I wanted to say, most importantly, I want to say congratulations. After a 12-year journey, right, 2022, you won Best Documentary Film.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, yeah, it was quite an unexpected surprise simply because we were invited to the festival. We didn't seek the festival out, and was very fortunate that occurred. Also, our distributor wanted me to be sure to mention that the film is available on all major VOD platforms: iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, Google Play, Vimeo, and Vimeo's worldwide. So in case your program reaches other countries, they can rent the film. I believe they can also download it from Vimeo, but I know they can rent it and anywhere in the world. And iTunes is available in England and Australia and the United States. But it's also, they're selling DVDs now as well. Walmart, Amazon, and about 20 other companies. So it's available globally at this point.
It must feel amazing to be to receive this, this award after all that. It's kind of major validation, and I hope it'll create more and more awareness. And Kelsey, let me ask you, what would you say to people that are skeptical about the afterlife?
I would say you need to watch the film. Just simple as that. It'll open your mind and you'll learn a lot. And as in-depth as the film delves into this topic, you might have to watch it 2, 3, 4 times to really soak in everything.
Wow. So I ask all guests this, and I'm going to ask you both, Steve and Kelsey, what is something that you are both grateful for?
I'm grateful for the release. It came as a surprise to me, and it's just been a whirlwind ever since.
Amazing. And Steve?
Well, I'm just grateful to be in good health after all my incidents that involved with dying twice and the several accidents that occurred in the interim. So that would be my most most gratitude would be in that direction.
And I'll tell you, I really resonate with the story when you were driving. We were here in Miami. We came from seeing a film. It's my 3 older children, and I was going straight about 65 miles an hour, and there's a fast lane, and someone came over the block, and I was going to hit them dead on, and someone was to the right of me. And not that I had my life flash in front of me, but I 100% was hitting the car. I saw it, and I was, at the time, my mother-in-law was in the hospital. We were dealing with a lot of different things, and I'm like, oh, this probably won't be so good for my wife to have to deal with this right now. So just everything completely slowed down. I blinked, and then my car was in front of the car in front of me, and I just drove off. I don't know what that was, but that was something I personally experienced. So just reminiscing, that's something that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, well, it sounds very relevant.
Yeah.
Because it goes to that concept that within a fraction of a second, you have an infinite number of fragments of time. So your mind is slowing those fragments of time down, I imagine. And then subsequent to that, it could even lift the car over the other car and place you in another direction.
Yeah. And I want to ask both of you, Steve, first, what is something that people might not know about you?
In my case, most people think because I'm making films that's my only profession, but I'm also a doctor of psychology.
And Kelsey?
I grew up on a ranch, and I'm a former champion barrel racer and rodeo queen.
Amazing. Yeah, my family and I love to ride, so I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you, Steve, Kelsey. Thank you so much. I implore everybody to go see the film. I will. Again, Steve, just one more time, what are different ways that people can go ahead and see the film?
It's on Amazon. You can purchase a DVD. You can also rent the film and watch it. You can also download it, and then on Vudu and iTunes, Google Play, and Vimeo. And I mentioned Vimeo for people that are in other countries, because even if they're in Russia or Afghanistan, they can literally rent it from Vimeo. It's the only global provider at the moment. But Amazon, if they want to buy a DVD, most of the other locations like Walmart, Best Buy, et cetera, are sold out. It seems as if Amazon has the largest stock of DVDs if they wanted to purchase a DVD.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kelsey. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Steve and Kelsey. Next week, I'll speak with 18-year-old rock climbing phenom Angie Scarth Johnson. Angie is already one of the best in the world at what she does, and she's only getting started. She'll tell us what it's like to scale great heights and what motivates her to push herself to the limit and beyond. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow me on social media at @Popack. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.